I'm Samantha Chian, your host with Spirit of Nevada. This episode is brought to you by the Richard Harris Law Firm, helping families and injured victims throughout Nevada for over 40 years. Hope you enjoy the show. There are 4 native fish species found at Ash Meadows. And while these fish may catch your eye, there are also many other species to see throughout the refuge. Ash Meadows has the greatest concentration of endemic life in the United States, and second greatest in all of North America. At least 26 endemic species have called this place home. Welcome to Ash Meadows, this beautiful oasis located right in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Now, this is the final refuge that we'll be featuring on the show. We've been to Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, where we caught waterfowl, which was a lot of fun. And we also stopped by the Mojave National Wildlife Refuge, where we were banding birds, and it was really exciting because that day we caught a striker bird. So if you'd like to know more about those refuges, don't forget to go onto Facebook and look them up. But today, we're gonna get into Ash Meadows, which is known for these little tiny cute little pupfish. So we're gonna meet some friends and learn all about it.
Soon time will tell, time won't bend, will ease or make you find amends. The words are lost, the band has stopped, searching for a trail you dropped. On my own for so long, the reasons why we sing this song.
Meadows National Wildlife Refuge was established in 1984. It's an oasis in the Mojave Desert. It was established due to the fact that it's an oasis in the middle of an otherwise very dry area. There are over 50 springs and seeps, if you count the very small ones in the refuge. So it creates this habitat where we have water available and also habitats associated with water, like riparian vegetation, for instance, ash trees, and this is where the refuge gets its name from. The refuge is about 24,000 acres. And we have a very high density of endemic species on the refuge. There are at least 26. Endemic species are species that occur nowhere else, so only on Ash Meadows and adjacent areas. A lot of these species are plants, but they also include 3 fish. They include a water beetle, some spring snails, and a few other species. We have a few endemic fish species in this area, and they include 3 different species of pupfish. Those are the Warm Springs pupfish, the Ash Meadows pupfish, and the Devil's Hole pupfish. We have 3 different species because historically there was a lot more water here 10,000 plus years ago, and then the water slowly started drying up. And the different pockets of water in the different springs became isolated from each other, as did the different populations of pupfish. So over time, they evolved into separate species. The Devil's Hole pupfish you'll hear a lot more about later when you visit the Ash Meadows Fish Conservation Facility. The Warm Springs pupfish are a species of pupfish that occur in various springs in a little bit higher elevation here. And then the 3rd species of pupfish are the ones that occur at the lower level springs.
Ash Meadows is a spring-fed wetland for many rare plants and animals. And one of the unique things about this refuge is they take care of these tiny, friendly species called pupfish. Now, the term pupfish comes from the mating habits of the males, whose activities vaguely resemble puppies at play. The entire population of the devil's pupfish lived in a water-filled cavern cut into a rocky hillside. Now we're talking about being isolated for 10,000 to 20,000 years. These fish have truly mastered social distancing for decades. And in the 1970s, these fish nearly became extinct. So today, they have a facility dedicated to bringing these fish out of extinction.
We are here at Point of Rocks, one of the pretty stops here at Ash Meadows. And next up, we're going to be meeting Michael, who's one of the biologists here at the refuge. Hi!
Hey Sam, welcome to King's Pool.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
So what is unique about King's Pool?
Yes, so this is one of our visitor favorites here at the refuge. It also houses one of 3 of our endangered fish here. It's the Ash Meadows Amargosa pupfish. And as you can see, they're very close to the surface, so you can get a good look at them there.
I see two different types. Is there a reason one, like what is what?
Yes, so your blue pupfish down there is going to be your males, your adult males. They are ready to breed. And then you have olive green pupfish as well, and that's going to be your females and or juveniles. And then invasives is a big issue here. People come and dump their aquarium fish, so we also, yes, bad problem. And so we have mosquito fish and mollies in here, as well as bullfrogs, all of which are detrimental to the pupfish.
Out of all the places in the desert, you have these pupfish. Why did they choose this area? Like, what is so special about them being here?
Well, you're right, we are in the desert, and we have 50 seeps and springs throughout the refuge, which
That's a lot.
That is a lot. We have, it produces endemicism that is #1 in America. And so just over time, they have separated themselves through from other stream systems and have become their own species. So it's very interesting that they're here.
No, it is. And then I would have never thought that we would take this boardwalk. You know, we go from plant surveys and then we come here and there's like, oh, by the way, there's these endemic fish that live here in Ash Meadows, which is so unique. So what do you love most about being able to research these fish and being a biologist here at this refuge?
Well, the biologist's question is, I mean, there's just so much to do. There's a plethora of different aspects of, you know, biology that you get to utilize and employ, and you know, and then with the pupfish, you're working with a fish that is nowhere else in the world, very limited in number, and they're just cool little playful fish. I mean, they really sell themselves.
And I know they are really cute. As soon as I saw the blue one, I don't know if you can see it, Purdy, can you zoom in for those that are watching right now to see if you can get a good shot of the blue fish? Those are the males. Correct. The males are standing out. And what's this all at the bottom?
That's going to be a native algae.
Okay. Only to here?
No, it's
found
throughout
it.
Nevada.
Okay.
But the pupfish will use that for male breeding territory. The females will lay their eggs in there. They will get invertebrates to eat. I mean, that's a very important aspect of their ecosystem.
And how are you guys able to make sure that they stay, being able to reproduce, staying healthy and keeping this area, this ecosystem going here?
Sure, so we try to take as many non-natives or invasive species out of the system that we can. We also do yearly fish surveys that will give us good indications of the health of their population, and if there's any management actions that we need to implement to get their population numbers up a little bit.
Well, I love the amount of detail that you put not only on your plants, but also your fish. And it seems like you guys got all the aspects covered here.
What we do on this refuge is we're trying to do everything that we can to protect and conserve the species that are here, if necessary, to recover them, so increase their population. And we're doing that by managing the habitat and restoring the habitat in order to fulfill the ecological conditions that are needed for the endemic species here. Ash Meadows was developed fairly thoroughly. It had mining, it had different types of ranching, and so we are not trying to recreate the habitat exactly as it was before human impact, but we're trying to restore the ecological functions the best we can, which sometimes does mean trying to get back to where we were a long time ago, but sometimes means changing things in a way that it's just a better habitat for this species that we are trying to protect and that we have care for.
I can't help but wonder, did Jack choose this location because of the springs? Or did he choose this location to escape the posses that were after him? Today, he remains a man of mystery. Some say he was a troublemaker for the fact that he had part of his ear sliced off, which at the time meant that you were a horse thief. Despite the fact that he may have been a horse thief, the Native Americans welcomed him into their land. He had a strong love for their culture and even married a Paiute by the name of Fanny Black. While the location seems isolated from the rest of society, it was the perfect spot for them to get everything they needed from this beautiful oasis filled with wildlife and running springs.
So we made it. We're at the Fish Conservation Facility, and this is where they house pupfish. And earlier when I interviewed Michael, he taught us all about that species. But now there's more to learn because Jenny here at the facility is the expert, and we're gonna see how they conserve several of these pupfish. So let's go on inside. Hi.
How's it going?
It's going good. What do we have here?
So this is the refuge tank at the Ash Meadows Fish Conservation Facility. It is a replica of Devil's Hole, which is where the Devil's Hole pupfish lives in the wild, about a mile from here. And this is where we keep the captive population.
So it's pretty interesting that you have a facility located in the middle of the desert with fish. Like, how did that all come about?
Yeah, so Devil's Hole is really isolated from all of the other springs that you visited here at Ash Meadows, and the fish is a different species. And so they have been endangered, listed and protected since 1967.
Wow.
And the population size has, since they've been started, they started counting them in 1972, population size has never been more than 600.
And so how many fish did you bring here to this facility so that you can have more and more fish?
So we've actually never removed a fish from Devil's Hole. We collect eggs and then we raise the eggs, and then once they get to a size where they could be breeding, then they come out here.
Then they come in here.
Yeah.
And
so this population was started with 29 fish in 2014.
And you have how many now?
Over 150.
Wow. You've done a good job here. Now I'm looking down here and I'm noticing it's very deep. How far does this go down?
This is 22 feet deep. It is 100,000 gallons of water. So most of the water volume is actually underneath the shelf, and then it actually undercuts where you're standing all the way out to our parking lot.
Wow. So what you see is not, it says this isn't it. It goes all the way out to the parking lot, so they have a wide variety of areas so they can swim in.
Yeah, it's a huge cavern, just like Devil's Hole is a huge cave.
So you took whatever was there and you replicated it here.
As closely as we could.
That's pretty awesome. And how long have you been taking care of these fish here?
I have been with the Fish and Wildlife Service since September of 2018, so about 2.5 years.
Okay, so for the fish to live, is there a certain temperature that they have to live in?
Yes, Devil's Hole is a really extreme environment. It is about 94 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's geothermally heated, and there's almost no oxygen in the water. So these are the only fish that can actually live in that environment, and we replicate those parts of their environment too. So this is about 90 degrees.
You all have done such a wonderful job preserving this area and making sure that these fish are just flourishing. Can you tell me, like, what's so special about them? Why all this work for these fish?
Well, so they do live in an environment where no other species can live, and they have a lot of traits that are unique to them. So biologically, they're interesting from that point of view. They also are endangered because of water pumping in the area. So to a certain extent, we feel as though we have a duty to take care of them because their population is so small due to human effects in the late 60s to begin with. They probably, maybe wouldn't be endangered if it hadn't been due to human activity to start with. Right through here.
It's super important that we sanitize and our shoes. And why is that for this facility?
Just to decrease any possibility of contamination from other systems where there could be other diseases or organisms that could harm the fish.
Yes, got to make sure they're okay. Now, what room is this?
This is what we call the propagation room.
Propagation room. Okay.
Yeah, so it's basically our lab-like space where we raise the eggs that we collect from the wild and have the juveniles, and then we also have breeding groups as we try to breed them in this environment in addition to the refuge tank.
Just as every plant and animal serves a purpose, so does every human that walks on Mother Earth. So when you're visiting these remote locations, just remember, you share this land with others that came before you. While I know my purpose in this lifetime is to share with you my experiences with those who nurture and preserve our wonderful state, I know it couldn't be done without an army full of people who care about this place we call home. Thank you, Ash Meadows, for preserving what we have left at this refuge. Sometimes we must all stop, take in a moment, listen to the birds, and feel the sounds of nature, for we are always in good company.
So there are 3 things you'll want to bring when visiting Ash Meadows. Number 1, an off-road vehicle, as there are several roads that are not paved. Number 2, lots of water, because you want to stay hydrated. After all, we are in the desert. And number 3, and most importantly, your picnic gear. And if you do have a picnic, you want to come to Crystal Reservoir, which is right behind me. It's a beautiful view. Well, I'm so hungry after all the filming we've done, so I'm going to get to eating. Stay tuned for next week as we go on to our next location. I'm Samantha Chian, but you can call me Sam with Spirit of Nevada. Brought to you by the Richard Harris Law Firm.